Alright, shalom. All praises be unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakwadash. Double honor unto the elder apostles and the elder bishops at Great Millstone, who were well and taught us his truth. Salutes to all. The sincere Akim Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Barakatham. Now, you can see this video here on screen from the elder Manatazakbar, GMS South Carolina 08 is the page. And the title here is Hebrew Israelites Esau tries to delete IUIC. Now, I watched this earlier, when the elder put it up, and I've just pulled it back to here, 5 minutes 16 seconds. I'm not going to play any of it, but you can see this still. And basically, this woman went to run over, I think she made 3 attempts, and she, ran through the camp with the car and, knocked over the stuff. And as you can see on the still here, you got the brothers, getting out the way of this crazy ass woman, and she's saying how, they were saying stuff or whatever, but the brothers didn't say anything. And really it was down to a particular race being excluded from what, they were talking about, and that would be Esau, Edom, and the elder, explains it in the video and gets into it and plays it all. So I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to speak about briefly here is what's up with that vocab, man. That's not to say it's your fault or his fault or he's behind, this pretty much attempted murder, But what I am saying is, what's your take on that vocab? What's your take, right, on this woman here on the left of the screen trying to run over the brothers at the camp? Okay, now, the IUIC, they don't teach the 100% truth. They go off on a number of things, which from the elder apostles and the bishops on down, at Great Millstone speak on extensively and continuously, and it's not in the hopes of, wanting to see, brothers die or whatever or anything like that. It's in the hopes that, people wake up in that group and come into the full knowledge of the truth. Okay, so yeah, the scripture says, provoke one another unto good works, right? So, it would appear annoying, why is Great Millstone always talking about, because it's a provoking in the hopes that, it causes people to study, to pray more, and then, if it be the Lord's will, come around to the full knowledge of the truth. So we don't hate the IUIC. Will the Lord destroy the establishment? If it doesn't turn around its doctrine, will people in IUIC not make it? 100%. Will people in Great Millstone not make it? 100%, or who once were in Great Millstone, or even you could be in the camp until the day the Lord comes back, and not make it, but will there be people in IUIC that make it? Yeah, because the Lord's going to pull them out and bring them into the 100% understanding of the scriptures. Will there be people in Great Millstone that make it? 100%, so it's not about hating or anything. Ultimately it's about the Lord's elect. So we don't want anything bad to happen to the camps. Yeah, they may not be teaching the 100% truth, but at the end of the day, the elect will come around, from whatever group they're a part of, but we don't hate on brothers, hoping that, when they walk outside their house, they step on dog shit and have a bad day, or they fall over and break their leg. We don't wish that on the IUIC. So, although we have differences where it concerns the camps, and the outside world, we'd all be the same. As in the world, they don't know the specific differences. You can go on Chat GPT and stuff; they'll tell you a thing or two. But to the world, how it's just black Hebrew Israelites, which are not black Hebrew Israelites. But point being, we don't want anything to happen, to the IUIC, or see brothers get run over and at the camp, on the camp, and all the kind of rubbish like that, man. So it's not good to see. I hope them brothers are alright, and I don't think anything happened to them, which is good. And to the sincere of them, may the Lord wake them up, into calling on the name of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, and other parts of the doctrine, which they're going off on. Again, the elect of IUIC will wake up, so it's a beautiful thing. Ain't even gonna sweat it like that. But regardless, I pray these brothers are alright, and none of them got injured, man. But yeah, Vocab, what you on, bro? What you gotta say about this? Not tying you into it as if you planned it or anything like that. There's an extremely high chance you had nothing to do with this. I'm not trying to tie you into it, but on a commentary level, what have you got to say about this, Vocab? Because you came down to London, yeah? You came to the England camp, and you saw, a couple of the brothers, and you was talking all kind of rubbish, how they teach they'll murder and they'll this and they'll that, and stuff like that. When you got active Edomites, right, walking around or driving around, driving cars, into the camp, man. That's an M charge. That's an attempted M, man. And I think she got jailed or something for like 22 years, which is good, and she deserves more. But the point is, we go out there, regardless of what camp it is. Some brothers do the microphone thing, whatever. But for the IUIC, they go out there and they teach the Bible, man. Okay. They ain't beating up people, they're certainly not getting in cars and driving it at people, using the car as a weapon to mow them down. The other camps ain't doing that. For Great Millstone, definitely ain't doing anything of the sort. Even where we set up and how we set up in any given location, Elder Apostle Tahar said it a couple of years ago, man. And it's been that way anyway, but he reinforced it a couple of years ago. Set the camp up in such a way where it doesn't look intimidating to passerbys. You got certain camps, they'll kind of position the brothers in a way where it's like you're making it hard for people to get past up and down the road, on the street, passerbys, pedestrians. It looks a bit intimidating from afar off. At Great Millstone, we don't do that. We're out there, but we set up in a particular angle and way whereby people ain't intimidated. And even if there's any chance for that, sometimes people, they stop and they look at you like, "Oh, can I go?" We smile and say, "No, it's cool. You can go by, man." We ain't out here to intimidate anybody. We ain't out here to hurt anybody. All right. Now, if you stop and listen to the word and get hurt by what the Bible says, that's a different story. But physically, we're not there to intimidate or hurt anyone. And neither is the IUIC doing that. So, this woman had demons on her. But what you got to say about that, Vocab, man? Here it is. You're saying we're going to murder people. We ain't going to murder people. There's a difference between killing and murder. But you're lying on us. And here you have people of the public trying to mow down the camp. What have you got to say about that, Vocab Malone? If the camps are so violent, why didn't the brothers jump in a car and chase after her? They didn't do that. They got out the way. They were concerned about getting the registration so they can probably report it to the authorities. And then she came back again and drove through the tripod and all kind of things. it would appear, and you can see in the still the brothers are running, man. So if we're so violent and on violence like that, why were the brothers running? And that was the smartest thing to do. Get the hell out of the way. So what have you got to say about that, Vocab, man? You trying to paint that narrative that the camps are violent and this and that. The brothers had a car, a crazy ass woman in a car, try and mow them down, and they got out of Dodge. What have you got to say about that, Vocab? You fucking piece of shit, man. Straight, man. You're a waste, man. Right? This is Luke chapter 6 and verse 22. And it says, "Blessed are ye when men shall hate you." And that's hate, man. You know, you get in a car and try to run a group of people over, man. That's hate. But the scripture says, "Blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company." Okay? "And shall reproach you and cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake." Okay? So yeah, this applies to really, you got to qualify this. This applies to, like, men in the truth, rearing up evil report for whatever reason and cutting you out, kicking you out, whatever the case may be, So that's what it applies to first and foremost, But then secondarily, you could apply this to, receiving hate from the world in general. Okay, and it says, "And shall cast out your name as evil." Oh, those black Hebrew Israelites, they do this, they do that. They want to murder people. They want to do this. They want to do that. Secondarily, you could apply it to that. It says, "For the Son of Man's sake." It says, "Rejoice ye in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven. For in the like manner did their fathers unto the prophets." So, again, is there elect in IUIC? Yeah. And the Lord will, have them make the necessary adjustments, before the doors of mercy are fully closed. You've got very sincere people in the IUIC, but they're just sincerely wrong on particular matters. And again, the elect will amongst them, will fine-tune things before it's too late. Because you can't teach another doctrine and be sincere and make it. You can teach another doctrine and be sincere. Yeah, that makes you sincerely wrong. But if you're of the elect, okay, you can be sincerely wrong for a moment in time, but before the doors of mercy close, the Lord can bring such an individual around. Just like Apostle Paul, when he was Saul, he was sincere. He thought he was doing the work of Yahweh, but he was sincerely wrong. Until he had an encounter with the Lord, Yahweh Shai, and it all changed from there. Then he was still sincere, but then the only thing that changed was he became sincerely right. So there you have it, man. So to those brothers, they're probably sincere, whatever. Don't know them, but the Lord knows. That's what matters. And because they're out there, man. So they could kind of take that as a blessing onto themselves, But at the same time, what the fuck do you have to say about that, Vocab? You got Edomite women trying to mow down camps, man. What have you got to say about that? The brothers didn't pull out guns and start shooting at her car. They didn't run up to her car with bricks trying to brick it and drag her out and beat her up. All they said was get the registration on the camera. Get the registration, the license plate. Get the license plate on the camera. Get the license plate on the camera, man. That's it. That's all the brothers kept saying. They didn't react violently. So if we're so monstrous, Vocab, what have you got to say about that, man? You piece of shit. What have you got to say about that, man? There's a few more scriptures I could bring out, but I'm pretty much going to leave it there, man. You know, that's pretty much the point. You know, yeah, man. You know. And there's gonna be more attacks like this, so you know we gotta be on the lookout. You know, this is why certain offices, you know, you may think, oh, it's not that important. No, but it is. You know, brothers holding posts. You know, it's mandatory. It's important. It's you know, a full camp can't really function if, you know, especially when you're in particular locations. You know, if everyone's a reader, everyone can't be a reader. You know, the scriptures speak about it, man. You know, let one read and then one or two break it down, and then two speak and the other examine. Let me see if I can find that. If I just type in the word examine. Let me see if I can find that, man. Bear me one moment. Right, I'll go. I had this precept on deck as well. I'll read this. Sirach 4:28. Strive for the truth unto death, and the Lord shall fight for thee. So being out there, you know, you're putting your life on the line, man. You know, so pray those brothers aren't, you know, discouraged or anything. And Lord's will, they'll be back out there, man. They're striving for the truth unto death. Can you go out there? You're open to anything. You know, guns, knives, you know, anything. You know, people break a wine bottle, a beer bottle, and try to attack you with that, try to hit you with that. You know, we've had eggs thrown at us before, all kind of things, man. You out in the open, man. So going to the camp is putting your life on the line. But it says, and the Lord shall fight for thee, man. You know. So that's it. Let's see if I can find that one where it says, let two speak. Let two speak. And one. Something like that. I haven't gone over this in a while. Here it is. This is 1 Corinthians 14:29. Let the prophet speak 2 or 3, and let the other judge. You know, so everybody in the camp can't be speaking at the same time. Everybody can't be reading. You know, if you've got a sizable camp, you know, you don't really need more than 2 or 3 readers. You know, after a while, you know, we start breaking it up so everyone can get it in. It's only natural, you know, everyone can bring out their precept. So you start breaking it up, you know. But as I was saying, an important office is holding posts. Because you could have a crazy ass person, you can see now the trajectory of the car, they're going off road. Not because it's an accident, they're going off road because it's on purpose. Oh shit, they're coming for us. Yo, arc him, get out of the way. But if everyone's got their head in the Bible or a phone, you know, you ain't gonna see no danger. So holding posts is a very important part to have a well-functioning camp, you know. So, yeah. Carlisle, how about Shemi outside? Them brothers didn't get hit or anything, but Vocab, what the fuck do you have to say about that, man? What's up with that? Where's your commentary on that? Anyways, man, shalom.